In early 2025, President Trump stunned the world by announcing a sweeping 25% tariff on all goods imported from Canada and Mexico. The announcement came suddenly, catching both trading partners and American businesses off guard. The new tariffs were set to take effect immediately, leaving little time for companies to adjust or prepare for the economic shockwaves that would follow. The administration justified the move as a bold crackdown on illegal migration and the flow of illicit drugs, but the economic consequences were immediate and far-reaching. For decades, North America had built a tightly integrated economic system, with supply chains stretching seamlessly across borders. Now, those connections were thrown into chaos as manufacturers, farmers, and retailers scrambled to understand the new rules and their impact. Although a partial carve-out was granted for Canadian oil, an attempt to soften the blow for American energy consumers, the message from Washington was unmistakable. No neighbor was immune from this new era of protectionism. The uncertainty rippled through the energy sector, with oil companies and workers left wondering how long the exemption would last, and what other industries might be targeted next. In Ottawa and Mexico City, government officials quickly pushed back, holding press conferences and releasing data to dispute the administration's claims. They pointed to years of cooperation on border security and trade, and highlighted statistics showing that their exports had little connection to the issues cited by the White House. Diplomatic channels buzzed with urgent meetings as leaders sought to de-escalate the crisis. For ordinary people, the impact was swift and personal. The tariffs threatened to raise prices on everything from cars and electronics to groceries and household goods. Small business owners worried about shrinking profit margins, while families braced for higher costs at the checkout. News outlets flashed graphs showing inflation on the rise, and economists warned of a ripple effect that could slow growth and cost jobs. As tensions mounted, protests erupted at border crossings and in major cities. Lawmakers in all three countries debated how to respond, with some calling for calm and others demanding swift retaliation. Factories faced layoffs and production slowdowns, while diplomats raced to find a solution at emergency international summits. The sense of partnership that had defined North America for a generation now seemed dangerously fragile. With cargo ships idling at ports and trade routes suddenly uncertain, the continent braced for a trade war with no clear end in sight. Economic analysts watched the markets nervously, and headlines warned of a new era of instability for North America. The economies of the US, Canada, and Mexico are more than just neighbors. They are deeply intertwined through a complex network of supply chains that stretch across borders. This isn't simply about buying and selling goods, it's about a level of integration that makes the three countries almost inseparable when it comes to manufacturing, energy, and agriculture. Take the automotive industry, for example. A single car assembled in North America might have its engine built in Canada, its transmission manufactured in the US, and its electronics produced in Mexico. These parts can cross borders several times before the final vehicle rolls off the assembly line. This cross-border collaboration maximizes efficiency, keeps costs low for consumers, and supports millions of jobs in all three countries. Energy is another vital link. The US depends on Canada for about 60% of its oil imports and nearly all of its natural gas. Shared electricity grids mean that power generated in one country can keep the lights on in another, providing reliable energy to millions of homes and businesses across the continent. Mexico, meanwhile, has become a manufacturing powerhouse. Its factories produce everything from televisions and computers to auto parts and appliances, supplying not just the US but global markets as well. And when it comes to food, Mexico's farms provide a steady stream of fresh produce, tomatoes, avocados, berries, and more, that fill American grocery stores year-round, ensuring variety and affordability for consumers. But this delicate balance is now under threat. New tariffs and trade barriers risk disrupting the seamless flow of goods, leading to empty shelves, higher prices, and economic hardship for families and businesses on both sides of the border. For decades, agreements like NAFTA and its successor, the USMCA, have helped build and maintain this intricate system. These policies fostered cooperation, growth, and stability. Now a single policy shift threatens to unravel years of progress and collaboration. Every link in the supply chain is at risk. For business owners, workers, and entire communities, the uncertainty brought by tariffs is more than just a challenge. It's an existential threat that could reshape industries and livelihoods. As the gears of North American prosperity slow down, the consequences could ripple far beyond the factory floor, affecting millions of lives across the continent. Canada hit back swiftly, announcing tariffs on $106 billion of American goods, targeting politically sensitive products like Florida orange juice and Kentucky bourbon. The goal: pressure U.S. politicians by hitting their home states and rallying Canadian unity. This tit-for-tat escalated the dispute into a political chess match, with both sides' consumers and businesses caught in the crossfire. Canadian companies faced higher costs, while American farmers and manufacturers saw their products become uncompetitive. Long-standing business relationships were thrown into chaos, forcing costly supply chain overhauls. For ordinary people, the result was higher prices and economic uncertainty. The trade war became a lose-lose scenario, with households and small businesses paying the price. The friendly partnership had devolved into a costly standoff. America's aggressive tariffs sent a clear message: its partnerships are no longer guaranteed. Canada began seeking new trade partners in Asia and Europe, especially for its vital energy exports. If the US imposes tariffs on Canadian oil, Canada has every incentive to build pipelines to new markets. Other energy exporters like Qatar and Saudi Arabia saw opportunity as buyers grew wary of US unpredictability. America's reputation as a reliable supplier was at risk, and global buyers started factoring in political uncertainty. Canada accelerated projects like the Trans Mountain Pipeline, while competitors raced to fill the gap. If protectionism continues, the US could find itself isolated as allies forge new alliances and rivals expand their influence. The global economic map is already shifting. The tariffs hit key US industries hard, especially oil, gas, steel, and autos. These sectors form the backbone of the American economy, supporting millions of jobs and entire communities across the country. When tariffs were imposed, the impact was immediate and far-reaching, touching not just big corporations but also small businesses and everyday workers. A 10% tariff on Canadian oil raised costs for Midwest refineries, leading to higher fuel prices or squeezed profits. Refineries, already operating on thin margins, suddenly faced tough choices: pass costs to consumers at the pump, or absorb losses and risk layoffs. For families and truckers, every cent added to fuel prices meant less money for groceries, bills, and savings. Tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum made energy projects and manufacturing more expensive, slowing growth and threatening jobs. Construction companies saw budgets balloon, while manufacturers struggled to source affordable materials. Projects were delayed or canceled, and workers worried about their future as contracts dried up. The auto industry, built on cross-border supply chains, faced billions in new costs, risking layoffs and plant closures in states like Michigan and Ohio. Automakers depend on a steady flow of parts from Canada, and disruptions meant production slowdowns, lost shifts, and uncertainty for thousands of workers. Communities that rely on these factories felt the strain as local economies faltered. Business leaders warned that the tariffs could destroy more American jobs than they protect, undermining the very industries they were meant to help. Protests erupted outside factory gates and boardrooms filled with anxious discussions about layoffs, closures, and the future of American manufacturing. The uncertainty made it nearly impossible for companies to plan or invest. With no clear end in sight, businesses put expansion and hiring on hold, and some even considered moving operations overseas to survive. The ripple effects of the trade war threatened the foundation of American manufacturing. Once bustling plants slowed or shut down, and entire towns braced for economic hardship as jobs disappeared. The pain was spreading far beyond the intended targets. From small business owners to families on Main Street, the consequences of the tariffs were felt in every corner of the country, leaving many to wonder when relief would come. For most Americans, the impact of tariffs is felt at the gas station and grocery store. The 10% tariff on Canadian oil could raise gas prices by 15-20 cents per gallon, hitting Midwest drivers hardest. Tariffs on Mexican goods mean higher prices for staples like avocados, tomatoes, and berries, forcing families to make tough choices at the checkout. The cost of cars, clothing, electronics, and building materials is also set to rise, squeezing household budgets. Regional disparities will deepen, with some states hit much harder than others. These are not abstract economic theories, they're real costs for real families. Every American will feel the squeeze as tariffs ripple through every corner of the economy. The true cost of the trade war is measured in everyday expenses. Behind the headlines, millions of workers and families across North America face real hardship. U.S. auto and farm workers risk layoffs as supply chains break and export markets dry up. Canadian steel and aluminum workers and Mexican factory employees face similar threats as their industries lose access to the U.S. market. Generational family farms and middle-class jobs are suddenly at risk, with bankruptcy and recession looming. The tariffs meant to protect are instead creating shared hardship and pitting neighbors against each other. The trade war is tearing at the fabric that connects millions of ordinary people across the continent. In a globalized world, everyone pays the price. As the trade war drags on, North America faces an uncertain and costly future. Decades of integrated supply chains could unravel, forcing companies to relocate and raising prices for years to come. Trust and cooperation between the US, Canada, and Mexico are eroding, with political fallout spreading beyond trade. With no effective mediator, the continent is drifting into uncharted territory. The choices made now, compromise or escalation, will shape the future for millions of families and businesses. The path ahead is unclear, but the stakes could not be higher. The future of North American prosperity hangs in the balance.